Hi, Matt. This is Andrew Fazekas. I couldn't accomplish this while looking at the screen without laughing at myself, so I'm going to try it like this. Uh, for this assignment, I'm talking about professional sports in step number one. I used an article from Bleacher Report, which was called Timeline of Coronavirus Impact on Sports, written by Joseph Zucker. And yeah, it talks about the early days of the coronavirus and how it affected sports. Before March 11th, coronavirus was seen as an over there problem. Here in North America, we knew that there was a problem going on the other side of the world, and we saw how bad it was, but we thought there's thousands of kilometers of water between us and them. It wasn't something we needed to worry about. But the NBA was where the dominoes first started to fall, and when they did fall, they fell very fast. So, first off, on Wednesday, March 11th, Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell of the Utah Jazz tested positive for COVID-19. Their game was suspended just before tip-off, and then 4 minutes later, the entire NBA put their season on hold. The next day, March 12th, that's when everything started to happen. NHL, MLS, NBA, PGA, MLB, all postponed their leagues. Every basketball conference in college, the La Liga Soccer League, International Tennis, and even the XFL. So we have to pour a little drop of wine out for that cursed league. And then the next day, everything just continued from there. European soccer leagues went on hold. Bundesliga and the Premier League, some of the biggest ones. Formula One and NASCAR. Augusta postponed the Masters. Boston, London marathons. Olympic sports preparations put on hold. And it just kept coming and coming from there. So obviously, coronavirus had a massive impact on professional sports from top to bottom, and I even threw in some amateur sports in there, like the Olympic stuff. The person I want to talk about is NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, and he managed to pull off something very incredible, which was getting the NBA bubble up and running, and most impressive, he completed it very successfully. So steps 2 and 3 of this assignment, I'm going to combine. I'm going to discuss the skills and attributes that a new professional should have, and I will talk a little bit about those, and I will give some examples of how Adam Silver managed to implement those in his NBA bubble. The references that I used for that were not articles, they were 2 TV shows, Tim and Sid and Highly Questionable. Watch them every day. I know all of this stuff in my head. I've been watching about this for months and months, so I didn't really need to read an article about it. Anyway, skill number one, recommendation number one. You gotta be a people person. No matter how high you rise in your business, no matter what rank you manage to achieve, you're never going to be able to do big and important things all on your own. You're going to have to collaborate with people. So you got to be able to work with people. You got to be approachable. You got to be collaborative. You got to be a good guy, good girl, good woman, whatever. How did Adam Silver do this? Well, he had to work with politicians. He had to get an agreement from politicians that were willing to allow such a big event to take place, even though the coronavirus restrictions in many places were extremely tight. Some places not as tight as they should be, but anyways. He had to collaborate with health officials and doctors to figure out all the proper guidelines to keep everybody safe throughout all of this. And of course, he had to work with a venue that was large enough and willing to house this massive project. Recommendation number 2, you got to be willing to adapt to situations. Now, hopefully, throughout all of our careers, we will not have to adapt to things as large as the coronavirus ever again. But there's always going to be small things that are out of our control, that change, and that we will have to face and, do business differently than we would have had that thing not changed. So you have to be willing to adapt. You got to figure out what is important to us, what's important to our business, and how can we move forward with that, with this new thing in place. Some of the adaptations that the NBA and Adam Silver had to take into consideration. For the most part, I would say the COVID-19 guidelines was the biggest thing. There were a lot of adaptations they made, but that was really it. They needed to establish all of these new guidelines, and then they needed to be firm with them. They needed to make sure people were following them. They needed to have oversight on it. And if somebody didn't follow them, they needed to be punished. Mo Williams is a very good example of that. Recommendation number 3, you need to be innovative and creative. You got to be able to think outside the box. You have to come up with ideas that catch people's attention, not just the same thing over and over again. It has to be interesting, and most of all, it's got to work. So you got to put a lot of thought into the things that you're going to do, not just half-ass it at the last minute like a video assignment, for example. New regular season rules for the NBA were a innovative thing. Not every team came, just ones that were in contention for the playoffs, and they changed the playoff format with the 8th and 9th seed. Team number 9, if they ended up within 4 games of team number 8, they would play a best of 3, but team number 8 would already have won a game, so basically team number 9 had to win 2 in a row. Didn't come up. They also had virtual fans, and they used pumped-in crowd noise to give more atmosphere to the games. Did look a little weird, but by the end of it, I think most people felt these were really great ideas that the NBA implemented. Number 4, fourth recommendation, you need to be willing to sacrifice and compromise. There's no doubt with something this big, lots of sacrifices and lots of compromises were made. Just to get it all going, just to have everybody willing to say, yeah, I'll do my part. Sacrifice of the league was that a lot of the low-ranked teams did not go into the bubble. That way they could keep the numbers down, and those teams didn't have a playoff spot to play for anyway, so out of luck, see you next year. The players had to adapt to being separated from their, or compromise, sacrifice being separated from their families. You know, this was a big thing. And biggest sacrifice of all was that you could not have outside chicken wings or strippers, Mo Williams. And finally, my 5th recommendation, which doesn't have to do with COVID-19, but you can't talk about 2020 without this, is you need to be diverse and inclusive. You know, social change has been a massive thing with everything in 2020, sports and everything else. And I think the way to do it is to get ahead of it. You need to educate yourself on how you can be more sensitive, how you can be more inclusive, and you need to start any business venture with those ideas top of mind. You need to strive for diversity. If you have different genders, different races, different creeds all working together, you get a lot of different perspectives, not just all people from the same background thinking the same sort of way. So it's actually a real strength to be diverse, and it lets you make better overall decisions. So that's it. That's my way too long video. I'll stop it there. Thanks a lot for watching, Matt.